I'm Assemblymember Chantel Jackson.
And I'm Assemblymember Jessica Gonzalez Rojas.
And today we're going to, focus on May being Mental Health Awareness Month and what we do for self-care.
Yes.
So what you're going to see us do is apply makeup and have real conversations about self-care and our work here at the Assembly. So,
yes,
Jessica, my first question as I put my primer on, what are 3 things you do for self-care?
So the first thing I do for self-care is what's in front of me.
I knew you was going to say that.
I have a bunch of makeup out here, so I'm putting on my primer as well.
Okay.
And I actually wanted to be an artist, not a politician or legislator. What? And I unfortunately don't get time to paint or draw or do any of those things that really brings me a lot of joy. So in a lot of ways, putting on makeup feels like that.
Feels like art, right?
It feels like art.
You are painting your face.
And every morning I do take the time to put my makeup on, maybe watch some YouTube, sort of decompress as I get ready for the day. So that's something that is really special to me, as well as spending time with my family and loved ones. I love being outside, and I love the summer, and I'm so glad we're almost there.
Love summer.
So ready to be outside as well and enjoy the fresh air. How about you, Chantel?
For self-care, so yes, makeup. So let me tell you, yesterday I was having a rough day, and I said, every time that I have a rough day, what I'm gonna do is put on my makeup so I don't have to look like what I feel like. And what happens is, once I put my makeup on and I walk around and people talk to me, they're like, oh my God, your face is beat to the God. And so that also, not that people's, their validation of me matters, but the fact that I don't look like what I'm feeling like also helps people bring new energy into my space.
Yeah.
And so I put on my makeup.
Yeah.
Any day that I don't feel my best, I apply my makeup. But self-care for me looks like when I wake up in the morning, I thank God first, and I read my scriptures for the day, and I do my meditation.
Ooh.
I meditate, and it's only 2 minutes. But that 2 minutes means so much to me because I'm centered and I'm focused on what's happening in the moment and not so much about like what's happening next, what happened yesterday. So I meditate.
How do you do that? So we're both mamas.
Yeah, we are.
And that's something we really connect on. My son is gonna be 12.
Yeah.
Your son is 2.
My son is 2 and my daughter's 21.
And 21, oh my gosh. So how do you actually find the time to pause and meditate when you have perhaps a little one ready to call your attention?
I mean, I have to make the time, and my meditation in the morning is only 2 minutes.
Okay.
So everyone has 2 minutes.
Yeah.
You can find the 2 minutes, and you can schedule the 2 minutes in your phone, like every hour. Just take 2 minutes out the hour and make your alarm go off and do your meditation. It doesn't have to be long. It just needs to be peaceful, right?
Yeah.
And peaceful within, because the outside can be doing whatever. So my meditation, I am sitting and being still and figuring out what's happening inside and around me. Yeah. So I may hear a bus go by and I acknowledge it, and I still come back to center. I come back to center, and I'm like, okay,
you're not
well,
distracted by the bus.
Exactly.
You acknowledge,
center, acknowledge what's happening, and then come back. Like, okay, what's happening? Do I feel an ache in my body somewhere? And I acknowledge it, and I get to move past that. So and it helps tremendously. Just that 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So.
And Chantel, you were a social worker prior to coming to the legislature, and I think that's why I really connect with you, because you care deeply about mental health. I love social workers. My chief of staff is a social worker. People in my life are social workers. I reflected and realized many people I've hired in my last organization were social workers. It just so happened that
she's getting a 2 for 1.
Yeah, getting a 2 for 1. But I'm curious. What brought you to run for office, like being a social worker? And I have lots of ideas of how this moved you, but can you tell us how how running for office came to be for you as a woman, as a social worker, as a community leader in the Bronx?
So I want to say this: once you're a social worker, you're always a social worker.
All right.
I'm licensed. And what happened was, when I was actually getting my degree in social work, I realized in my policy class that a lot of the elected officials were lawyers, they were business people, they were not necessarily people who dealt with issues that I dealt with growing up, or issues I dealt with in my community, or issues my clients dealt with, like Medicaid and food stamps and public housing, all things that I know really well. And so I was like, well, if these people are making law and policy for my community to deal with or for me to deal with, they should at least have walked the path.
Yes.
And so that's why I felt it was so important for me to run for office, be a person in the room to have a different voice. And I noticed that because I did school social work, social work in general, I come in with a different perspective than most others. And so I feel like that's absolutely needed. Like every corner of the earth is needed to come to the table and make good policy.
Exactly.
By the way, I'm up to eyeshadow at this point, and I am smoothing out. What are you up to?
Okay, I put on foundation. Okay. I had on SPF. I want to say that before I got here because SPF was so important. I had primer, I did foundation, I did some highlighter.
Okay, good.
LYS. LYS is a brand that says "I love yourself." I think that's what it stands for. So it's very appropriate for our conversation here.
Yes.
And then I just put on blush, and now I think I might go with my eyes too. You inspired me.
So I only did my primer and I did my concealer, and I am doing my eyeshadow right now, and I am blending it out. And I think we're gonna go with a little razzle dazzle and a little bit of a little bit of a glitter on top of that. And then Jessica, I would love to know the same. Like, what made you into the world of the assembly?
The personal's political, and as you mentioned, bringing lived experiences to your to this job is really important because we're representing 135,000 people who have very different lived experiences. But when you grow up in the same community, when you understand the struggles that they've gone through, when you connect on different levels. My father is an immigrant from Paraguay, and my mom is Puerto Rican.
And what do they say about immigrants? We get the job done.
We get the job done. Immigrants get the job done. And they often don't get the resources or the credit or the support or the health care or all the things that we really want. And I spent my entire career in social justice. So I worked at a university in the Multicultural Center, working with students around social justice issues. I worked at a disability rights organization.
Yes, disability rights.
And I helped co-found an immigrant rights organization that is up here frequently. It's amazing to see how much they've grown.
Right.
New Immigrant Community Empowerment,
yes,
nice for sure. And I've been involved in my community for a long time, but working in advocacy and policy change and organizing for the last 13 years for reproductive justice had me see how important it was to have people who understood the lived experiences of our community. I work specifically with Latinas and immigrant women and women of color.
Yes.
And and we did a lot of advocacy. We came to Albany plenty, we went to DC plenty, we would go to state houses across the country. And the ways I saw the ways that elected officials were disrespecting community members in these meetings was really hard to see. And I ultimately felt like those people need to be changed, and we have to start getting in those state houses and in Congress and different levels of government to really be reflective and respectful of our community.
They forget who voted for them, right? Like, this job is all about the community that votes for you.
And we told every person, even if you were undocumented, you live in the community, you pay taxes, the elected officials, you are their boss. You are the boss because you are the constituents, and your voice matters. So we worked really hard to make sure people felt like they had a voice and use their voice as their power to create change. But then, 2016 happened, and
what happened in 2016?
Trump was elected, and we saw a wave of powerful women of color, step up and say, nope.
Not gonna happen.
In 2018, we saw so many people start changing the landscape of politics. In my district, we had the first Dreamer run for office, Catalina Cruz, my neighbor. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is my congresswoman. We saw a young queer Latina run for district attorney. We had a labor leader, young woman labor leader, Jessica Ramos, run for Senate and take out someone who was in the Independent Democratic Caucus. So we saw a wave of change in my neighborhood. And then people started asking, is that guy still there that's representing us who's not a person of color? And my district is 88% people of color.
Wow.
So I started getting asked over and over and over again. And I think statistically it takes like 7 or 8 times for a woman to be asked to run for office.
Say that.
Before they think about it. So, yeah. So when enough neighbors asked, I was like, I'll think about it. Because I love my job and I love my work and I love being in advocacy. But I didn't want to sit on the sidelines anymore.
And watch. Yeah.
And watch. So
got to get in the game, coach.
Yeah. And I really try to be the best advocate I can for my community and for the issues we care about, like mental health, like healthcare access in general, like criminal justice reform, like, you know, there's so much. There's so much we have to deal with
so
here.
much. Yeah. And I feel like you are a great advocate for all the vulnerable populations.
Thank you.
So I'm grateful to have you as my colleague.
Thank
you. We came in at the same time.
We came in at the same time, which was really fun.
And yeah, it is fun.
We were COVID candidates.
We were. We were definitely COVID candidates.
We were COVID candidates in 2020. Didn't know what was happening in the world.
Didn't know what was going to happen, what was happening, but we were just in the community doing the work, and here we are. Still taking care of our people, which is extremely important. And taking care of ourselves, right?
Yes, we're trying. I want to ask you what are like some of your priorities coming in, and what are some of your goals for the rest of the session? We're really in the last, few moments, the final days. So,
so my eyes are done, by the way.
Oh, okay.
I'm done with eyes.
I have a pride brunch, so I'm bringing a little extra spark.
Extra razzle dazzle.
The extra razzle dazzle.
Okay, so when I came in, I ran on fully funding foundation aid.
Yes.
Which
we got done.
Shocked.
Yes.
Shocked.
Yes.
And I remember a post that I did. I'm gonna go to blush. I remember a post that I did that said we need to legalize marijuana and we need to expunge records for marijuana. Yep. We need to provide reparations for marijuana. And we should be, the communities that were harmed by the war on drugs should be the ones benefiting from us legalizing it. And we came in first year. And we got to legalize marijuana. And now we're watching all the other things come to fruition.
Yep.
Which is insane for me because I watched so many of my friends and family be arrested for a plant that I watched my white counterparts just enjoy.
Yep.
Oh, I love how you do
Oh,
you just taught me something.
So I'm doing my eyeliner, which is something I do not generally walk out of the house with.
Right.
So I do the wing first.
She's winging.
And then I meet it at the base.
See, I never get my eyeliner right, so I just go basic.
I mean, you always look amazing.
Yeah. So fully funding foundation aid and legalizing marijuana, cannabis. But for this session, I would take home a win and feel really satisfied if we can get clean slate done.
Oof. Yeah.
And if we can get reparations done,
yes.
the reparations study bill. Those are
Let's talk about reparations.
Okay, sure. I didn't plan on talking about it, but sure.
No. Talk about what the bill is, because I think there's a lot of misinformation.
There is a lot of misinformation about the reparations bill. So it's an actual commission and study bill. We're going to create a commission that will decide what harms did New York State do when it came to enslavement of African people, and how in which who did they harm, and how in which do we make them whole.
Yes.
That is literally what the bill is asking us to do, to create the commission so that those people can make the decision on how New York State have harmed African people through chattel slavery.
Yep.
And so we all know it happened.
Yeah.
Like that's not a secret. And now we're asking, not even asking, but we're saying it is time to make this right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And New York State played a big part. I know that we think that we're very liberal, and we are at some degree.
Yeah.
But the truth is, slavery lasted a long time here in the state of New York. And if you go to the New York Historical Society, they have a great exhibition on slavery in New York. So I encourage everyone to visit our New York Historical Society so you can see the harms that were done here in the state of New York.
And actually, last year, Assembly member at the time, Charles Barron, was able to get the bill passed in the Assembly.
Twice, actually.
Twice, yeah.
So Barron got it passed in 2020 when we got here.
Oh, before
I'm sorry,
we got
2021 when we got here.
Yeah.
And then Mikhail Salaj, who has the bill now, got it passed again in the Assembly side. And the Senate wasn't there yet. They weren't ready yet. And it sounds like, based on the last few hours, because everything changes within minutes and hours
we are days away, and everything is in flux still.
So it looks like they're much closer, and we may get a vote before we leave session this year. So reparations, so important. So important. And it's not like we're asking the state of New York to hand out checks, right? Not me. I'm not personally saying that, because reparations can be making people whole when it comes to housing and education and health insurance. You know, things that you can really grab today and utilize.
And that's why the commission's really important, because it'll be a very thoughtful process with a study, a report, recommendations.
You got it.
And that could allow us to then take the next steps
I agree.
To move forward.
Yep. And then clean slate.
And then clean slate.
Clean slate can't wait.
Clean slate can't wait. We've been waiting a long time for clean slate.
Exactly. So yeah, those are the two. What are you looking forward to, and what are you excited that we passed so far?
So I am really hoping to address gun violence through a bill that was passed in the Senate that I carry in the Assembly that would reimburse anyone who is a victim of gun violence who are Medicaid recipients and end up in the hospital. So for example, someone who's been in a shooting and ends up in the hospital, those programs are so effective. You get them at the hospital. Do you have Jacoby in your district?
No, I have Lincoln, and they have Guns Down, Life Up.
Yep. Yeah. And those programs are really effective. And then you get the victim and the survivor right at the moment, right? You get them at the hospital when many of them just trying to figure out what happened to them. And you connect them to resources to address community-based gun violence, or just, violence in general. And oftentimes the cost is prohibitive, and we're doing a lot in the Assembly and the Senate to get more resources to those programs, but this is one way to make sure we're addressing a public health problem with a public health solution. So that's a big one. And then I've been relentlessly fighting for coverage for all.
You have.
Coverage for all would allow for people who would be eligible for our essential health plan, which is up to 250% of federal poverty, but are excluded simply because of their immigration status. The more people we cover, the cheaper the plans are, the healthier our communities are. And our former Assembly member, Dick Gottfried, had carried that bill for years. And we're closer than ever, because this year there's a federal waiver we could submit called the 1332 waiver. And that would allow us to use federal dollars through like a pass-through account, a little technical. But we can submit this waiver and get it approved by the federal government. Colorado has done it. Washington State has done it. It is time we do it. It won't be a fiscal to the state of New York, and it'll make sure our communities are healthier. So
there we go.
I'm pushing for that, as well as clean slate and the reparations bill, and so much before the end of the session.
And we have so many more bills that we want to do, but like if we had to, focus in on just those two, we would definitely be happy that we got it done.
And although I would say there's probably a third big.
Go for the big one.
Housing.
Housing.
We have a housing crisis.
We have a housing crisis.
Yeah. And it is time, and it seems like we're on a path to a deal.
We're much closer.
We're getting closer, but we can't. I feel we can't walk away from this session without dealing with housing. How's the housing crisis in your community?
Oh, you can just imagine. I'm 80% renters. My housing courts are full of people who are facing eviction, and it's so sad, because housing is a human right.
Yep.
Right. You, just like you need food and water, you need shelter.
Yeah.
So for us, since before I even became the Assembly member, I've been fighting for housing justice for people, and making sure that they have advocates that understand the law and can advocate for them and help them out.
Yeah.
I do a lot of one-shot deals. Do you
in your district office?
So that means like a number of my constituents are behind in rent for one reason or another, and they need help.
Yeah.
And my office spends a lot of time helping people come up, get updated on their rent arrears. So housing is and people always calling and asking, can we help them find housing?
There's nothing available. It's so expensive. It's so out of reach.
Right.
And I hate losing my neighbors.
I know.
I hate losing my neighbors.
And my neighbors are leaving and headed down south, where they can get more for their money.
Yeah.
And they can live a little, I wouldn't say stress-free, but less stress than what New York causes.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I struggle with is I live in the South Bronx, so automatically we have a lot of culture and vibe, and it's an exciting place to be. But I struggle with the amount of dirt that we have to deal with, the amount of poor air quality, the noise. All of those things create stress that you are not aware of on the surface.
The environmental stressors.
The environmental stressors that are totally different when I come up here to Albany. When I'm in the Bronx, you can hear everything all times of the day. Yeah. And people don't realize that you grow up with this, and it's traumatic. Because the second you leave and you go to a place that's more quiet, some people can't sleep. Yeah. They don't know how to operate.
Yeah. They're not used to the quiet.
They're not used to quiet, and they're not used to peace.
Yeah. Oh,
peace.
We all deserve peace.
And everyone deserves peace. So I work with my city council to see what we can do to, one, of course, deal with the air quality. That's an issue, huge. An environmental issue that we are dealing with.
That's another thing, environmental
justice.
Yeah.
That, and just making sure that we are mindful of the noise and the dirt. And we deal with so many issues in the Bronx, like us being the unhealthiest county. That's another thing I'm working extremely hard on. But if I can make the people who are supposed to do this work do it, that's what I do. So when I have issues with sanitation, I'm always on the phone with the commissioner, reaching out and making sure that my neighborhood doesn't have to have that same thought process that everyone had about the Bronx being dirty and burning and things like that. Yeah. So I'm constantly working on that and just reducing the asthma rates.
Yeah. Oh, asthma is a huge issue.
It's insane in the Bronx. And so working on reducing asthma rates through smoking. Smoking is a big one. I wish I actually advocated for the menthol ban.
Oh yeah.
And I know my constituents probably didn't want it. But we came here to do what's right by the people. Yeah. And I know that that's right. Yeah. I remember a time when people smoked in restaurants. I know you remember.
Yeah.
And that was the norm, smoking in restaurants.
In airplanes.
Which is insane to me today. Can you imagine someone lighting up in the airplane today?
That's insane.
And that's the experience I want people to have when we talk about cigarettes in general. It's like, I cannot believe we even did that, right? There were times when we rode in cars without seatbelts, right? I remember a day or two we sat in the middle console because I was the smallest, right? So I sat in the middle console.
Exactly.
And we don't do those things anymore. So when we know better, we do better, and we get to do better. Yeah. And while it might not be popular today, at some point it will be.
Yeah, and I think, the one thing I think about a lot is that
I love this lip color, but keep talking.
So I am not explaining what I'm doing, but I just did my mascara, my eyeliner, and I'm putting on my lipstick. And you know what? Most of this is drugstore makeup.
Ooh.
I have like a MAC powder.
Well, we're not gonna
most
give
of this
too much
is
credit, but what you're saying is it's inexpensive to do. It doesn't cost a lot.
Yeah. This is from Sephora. I mean, it's a lot of good stuff you can get on a budget.
Okay. Oh, on a budget.
On a budget.
So I'm spraying. I'm going all the way up
a little powder. I think about how we are elected on a set of values.
Yes.
Right. I think people, our constituents, understand what we stand for. Oh, you got a fan?
Yeah, only because I use my setting spray and stuff. And so I just.
I love it. We are elected on a set of values, and there will be some times that we're not completely in line with. And it's not, it's like the noisiest constituents, right? Sometimes the ones that might dislike the menthol ban and something you believe in, there might be a noisy opposition. Doesn't mean it's reflective completely.
Of everyone, yes.
But sometimes you have to stand up and say, you know what? I was elected on a set of values. Public health is one of them. And I think that's really important. I'm very clear about my values. Yeah. And I have it's equity, it's dignity, and it's justice, and that's what I stand for.
Can I snap?
Yes.
Equity, dignity, and justice.
I think we're almost done.
I'm done.
Finish.
I already sprayed.
I knew I'd be.
So I am done. This is the face you get for today.
I do want to ask you one last fun question.
Sure.
If you were being honored at a gala and they said, okay, what is your walkout song? What is a song that you want to hear as you're feeling your best, as you're celebrating some huge accomplishment that you did, and you're going to walk on stage and you have, 30 seconds to walk across stage? What song would you want them to play and why?
Okay, so I grew up on hip hop.
Yes.
and I love the Lord, so I do a lot of trap and gospel together. But my walkout song would be "Win" by J-Rock, and it literally just goes win, 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 win. Because I'm all about the win. I love to complete a goal. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel accomplished. So for me, it's about the win.
And I'm gonna spray as you win.
Yes, spray as I win. So if I come out to anything, it's about winning.
Yeah.
And I love to win at my workouts every day. I love to win at applying my makeup.
Yes.
I just love a good win. And it doesn't have to be a big one.
Yeah.
It just has to be a good one that makes me feel good. So Win by J-Rock.
I love that.
And shout out to our 50th anniversary of hip hop.
Yeah.
What would be your song?
There's a song called Soy Yo by Bomba Estéreo. And I think I'm actually most inspired by the video because it's this adorable little girl who's just being her full self and her joyful self. And, I think people in the street are looking at her funny because she's just dancing and it's very Latino and just inspiring. Yes. And Soy Yo literally means I am me. I am. And I am. Yes. And this is who I am. Like I said, the constituents know it. I reflect a set of values. I fight for things. I'm very consistent. I'm always open to listening and learning. Yeah. I'm a lifelong learner. But this is what you get.
Well said.
Yes.
And the I am is so important because that's your affirmation. Yeah. Whatever comes out of your mouth is true to what you will be, what your life will be in design. So you have to create the vision even by just speaking the words.
Yes. Oh, I love it. Perfect ending. Well, Miss Assembly Member Chantel Jackson, yes, I adore you. Member Jessica Gonzalez Rojas. Thank you. This was so much fun.
This was fun.
Yes.
This was fun. And so we want to remind everyone that mental health awareness is so important, and self-care is one of the main things you have to focus on when we're talking about mental health.
Yeah, and you certainly don't have to restrict it to 1 month. This is a lifelong journey and one that we will continue to fight for so that everyone has access to mental health services.
Period.
All right. Thank you. Bye.